It happened faster than I could take a single breath. One moment I was standing in the middle of my ordinary day, the hum of traffic in the distance, the weight of my phone in my hand, and the next, everything inside me shifted. A sharp, crushing pain in my chest. A sudden dizziness. Then the world tilted out from under me. The sound came first, a piercing high-pitched ring that filled my head like a siren no one else could hear. And then, as if someone had reached over and turned down the volume of reality, it faded, replaced by an unnatural, heavy silence. No heartbeat, no breath, no ground beneath me. I was floating. My body felt weightless, as if I had been cut loose from gravity itself. But even without touching my chest, I knew I wasn't breathing. I wasn't alive. That's when I saw him. Not from across a great distance, but right there, close enough to feel his presence pressing into my very being. The face before me was not the soft, painted image I had grown up seeing in Sunday school. No. His face was both compassionate and grave, as though every truth about my life was written plainly in his eyes. He called my name. It wasn't loud, but it shook me to the core. Every syllable unwrapped me, stripping away the layers I'd used to cover myself. "You have 11 minutes before you return," he said, his voice steady, unshakable. "And in that time, I will show you what many do not want to see." I wanted to speak, to ask where I was, to ask if I was safe. But something in his tone told me this was no casual encounter. This would not be a tour of heaven. This was a courtroom. And the truth was about to testify against me. Without walking, without moving, we were suddenly somewhere else. Before me stood a church. The kind you'd see on a postcard. Towering spires, pristine white walls that seemed to glow with the light of 100 suns. The stained glass shimmered, spilling colors across the ground like a river of jewels. Every note of music pouring from inside was perfect, rising into the air like it belonged in heaven itself. I stepped closer, drawn to the sound of worship. And when we crossed the threshold, it was breathtaking. People filled the sanctuary from wall to wall. Hands raised, voices lifted, faces radiant with emotion. Pastors preached with eloquence. Choirs sang with power. Ushers moved with precision. It was, by all appearances, a church alive. But then I saw it. Behind the altar, there was a set of doors. Tall, majestic, shimmering faintly like they were carved from light. And yet, every lock on them was bolted shut. Jesus' voice was low, almost grieving. "Many inside believe they are mine," he said. "But these doors will never open to them." My eyes darted across the room. I recognized some of the faces. People I had admired. Generous givers, eloquent teachers, tireless volunteers. Some had prayed over me. Some had preached sermons that moved crowds to tears. But as I looked, the scene began to shift. Not outwardly, but inwardly. It was as if the Lord pulled back a veil, and their true hearts were exposed before me. One man stood in the pulpit, preaching with passion, but his heart pulsed with the desire for applause, not the approval of God. A woman knelt in worship, her lips whispering prayers, but inside, unforgiveness clung to her like chains she refused to release. Another served tirelessly, but every act was laced with quiet bitterness, as if keeping score for a reward she believed God owed her. Jesus looked at me. "This is not false faith," he said. "It is half surrender. They have given me much, but not everything. And what they keep is what locks these doors." I stared at the bolts, and in each one I saw the shape of something familiar. Pride, hidden lust, greed, resentment, fear of man. The music swelled around me, but now it sounded hollow. Every note, every word was reaching upward, but going nowhere. I turned back to Jesus, my throat dry. "What happens to them?" Yes. His eyes held mine. "Unless they surrender what they still keep, the doors remain closed. And when they finally knock, it will be too late." Jesus extended his hand, and the scene around us shifted. The music of the church faded, and in its place came the stillness of a courtroom. One by one, he began to show me lives, not as they were seen by men, but as they were known in heaven. 1. The Unforgiving Servant. A woman appeared before me, middle-aged, her hands worn from years of service. I saw her cleaning the church kitchen late at night, praying over children in Sunday school, bringing meals to the sick. Her name was Margaret. I watched her in a moment of worship, eyes closed, hands lifted, tears streaming. Then the veil was pulled back. In the hidden chambers of her heart was a locked room, and inside it sat the memory of her sister. 30 years had passed since their argument, 30 years of cold silence. "Lord, she wronged me," Margaret whispered in the dark of her thoughts. "I will never forget what she did." Jesus' voice was heavy with sorrow. "She prayed to me for mercy while refusing to give it. Did I not say in Matthew 6 verse 15, 'If you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins'?" The image of Margaret dissolved into the shadow of a closed door. The Selective Obeyer. Next, I saw a man named Thomas. He stood behind a pulpit, Bible in hand, warning others to live holy lives. The congregation nodded in reverence. But Jesus let me see behind the scenes. Thomas's public faith was spotless, but his private life was not. His computer screen glowed with what he thought no one would see. His jokes with close friends dripped with arrogance. His prayers in the quiet were shallow, meant only to soothe guilt, not to surrender it. "He preaches my commands," Jesus said, "but he does not obey the ones that confront his own comfort." Matthew 7 verse 21. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father." 3. People pleaser. The scene shifted to a modern office. Glass walls, polished floors. A young professional named Daniel sat in a meeting. The conversation turned crude, mocking faith and morality. Daniel laughed along softly, avoiding eye contact, hiding the cross necklace tucked beneath his shirt. Later that night, I saw him in church, singing louder than anyone else, hands raised high. Jesus' eyes were piercing. "He wears my name in worship but hides it in the world." Luke 9 verse 26. "Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his glory." Daniel's face fell in the vision, as if he had heard the words too late. For the emotional believer. Now I saw a woman in the middle of a revival service. Her name was Rachel. The music swelled, and she was the first to run to the altar. She wept, shouted, even fell to her knees in surrender. But Jesus showed me her life 2 weeks later. Back in the same relationship she knew was wrong, back to speaking words that cut others down, back to avoiding the still, small voice of conviction. "She loves the feeling of my presence," Jesus said softly, "but not the cost of my commands." John 14 verse 15. "If you love me, keep my commandments." Her faith begins and ends with emotion. 5. The comfort-driven. The next man I saw was Michael. His service to the church was legendary, when it fit into his schedule. He led teams, hosted gatherings, gave generously. Then one day, the church faced a costly mission, one that required risk, discomfort, and sacrifice. Michael politely declined. "I'll help next time," he told them, "when things are easier." Jesus' expression was steady. He follows when the road is smooth, but turns back when it becomes narrow. Luke 9 verse 23. "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." The vision of Michael faded into a wide, empty path, one that led nowhere. The silent watcher. Finally, I saw an older woman named Evelyn. She sat near the back of her church, watching as gossip tore through the congregation. She saw a young believer being bullied into silence. She knew the truth, she could have spoken up. But she didn't. "It's not my place," she told herself. "I don't want to cause division." In the vision, her silence was not peace. It was consent. Jesus' voice was firm. She feared the ripple of confrontation more than the wave of sin. Ezekiel 3 verse 18. "If you do not speak out to dissuade the wicked from their ways, they will die for their sin, and I will hold you accountable for their blood." The scene stopped. I stood in silence, my chest tight, unable to speak. Jesus looked at me. His eyes filled with both justice and mercy. "These are not strangers to the church," he said. "These are the ones who serve, sing, give, and lead. But they hold back the one thing I require: their whole heart. Half surrender is no surrender at all." I realized my pulse was racing. Because somewhere in the faces I had just seen, I recognized myself. The last image faded, and I stood in silence, afraid to ask what came next. Then Jesus turned toward me. "You've been some of these people." The words hit me harder than anything I had seen. My first instinct was to deny it, but before I could speak, the air around me shifted. Scenes from my own life began to appear, like a reel of film I had no control over. I saw myself standing in a church hallway, avoiding eye contact with someone who had hurt me deeply. I had said I forgave them, even smiled politely, but in my heart the bitterness was still alive, fed daily by my silent resentment. I saw myself behind a microphone, speaking with passion about holiness, while knowing full well I had excused certain habits in my own life as small things God understands. I saw the office meeting where faith was mocked, and I stayed quiet, afraid my name would be the next punchline. I saw revival services where I cried at the altar, promising change, then returning days later to the same compromise, the same selfish choices. It was like being stripped down to my soul, every mask pulled away. Jesus stepped closer. His eyes were steady but not cruel. "You love the safety of being near the cross," he said, "but not the pain of carrying it." I felt my chest tighten, the air heavy. My faith. It had been convenient. It had been selective. I had loved the benefits of belonging to him, but I had never truly surrendered everything. The weight of it crushed me. I wasn't looking at the warnings anymore. I was standing in them. Jesus lifted his hand again, and the scenes changed. Now there was no stage, no bright lights, no crowds. The setting was ordinary. Small rooms, quiet corners, hidden places where no applause could reach. The first was an elderly man. He sat in a worn armchair by a window, the morning sun catching the silver in his hair. His Bible lay open on his lap, pages worn and underlined from years of use. I watched as he bowed his head, whispering names. Some were family, others strangers. And then, to my surprise, he prayed for those who had wronged him, by name, with tenderness in his voice. No one else heard. No one else knew. "This man," Jesus said, "has chosen to bless those who cursed him." When no one was watching, he obeyed my words in Matthew 5 verse 44. "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." The scene dissolved, and I stood in a cramped kitchen where a young single mother was at her counter, counting bills beside a near-empty fridge. A man's voice on the phone offered her a way out, a dishonest job with easy money. She hesitated, the weight of her hunger and her child's needs pressing against her resolve. Then she quietly said, "No, I can't dishonor my Lord like that." "She refuses what is easy," Jesus said, "because she knows I am her provider. Her faith is not built on comfort, but on trust." The vision shifted again. Now I saw a teenage boy standing in the corner of a noisy school cafeteria. A group of classmates mocked another student, shoving him, laughing at his clothes. The boy's friends called for him to join in. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself between the bully and the target. The laughter turned toward him, but he didn't move. "He chose me when no one would praise him for it," Jesus said. Luke 9 verse 26. "If anyone is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them." The pattern was clear. None of these people were perfect, none of them were celebrated. But each one had chosen obedience when it cost them something. They had surrendered without an audience. "Do you see the difference?" Jesus asked. I nodded slowly, my throat tight. "They chose me when no one was watching," he said. "Their faith is not a performance. It is a covenant." And in that moment I realized, the quiet obedience of the unseen was louder in heaven than the loudest performance on earth. Without warning, the light around us dimmed, and the ground beneath my feet felt like it was moving. When my eyes adjusted, I saw a line, stretching farther than I could see. Men and women of every age stood in silence, each stepping forward one by one toward a great throne. The weight in the air was unlike anything I had felt before. It was final. I watched as a man stepped forward, confident, smiling even. "Lord," he said, "I preached in your name. I led missions, built churches, fed the poor." Jesus looked at him, but there was no recognition in his eyes. "You knew my words," he said, "but not my ways." The man's smile faded. His eyes darted to the crowd as if someone would speak up for him, but the silence was deafening. He was turned away. Next came a woman, tears streaming. "Lord, I sang for you. I raised my children in the church. I served at every event." "You served," Jesus said, "but only where it pleased you. You would not follow me where it cost you." She fell to her knees, but the line moved on. The scene shifted, and I saw others, ordinary faces, most of them unknown to the world. An old man with work-worn hands. A young woman holding nothing but a small, worn Bible. A teenager in simple clothes. As they approached the throne, Jesus stood to greet them. His smile broke through the solemnity like the sunrise. "These," he said, "are the ones who chose me when no one was watching. They carried my cross quietly, with no thought of reward on earth. And today I call them mine." The line of the rejected still lingered in my vision. The applause of earth had been loud for them, but here it was silent. Jesus turned to me. "Eternity will reveal the truth no reputation can hide." Jesus stepped closer, his eyes searching mine as though peeling back every defense I had left. "I will ask you 3 questions," he said, "and the answers will tell you where you truly stand with me." His first question: "Have you surrendered the part of your life you still protect from me?" Images flashed, the corners of my heart I had labeled off limits. The dreams I clung to more tightly than him. The grudges I justified keeping. I couldn't speak. My silence was my answer. The second question: "Do you still weep over the things that grieve my heart?" I remembered a time when sin, in myself, in the world, broke me. But somewhere along the way, I had learned to scroll past it, laugh it off, or excuse it. I felt the sting of shame. The third question: "When no one is watching, am I still your first love?" The answer was the most painful. I remembered the early days, when I would seek him without prompting, without an agenda. But in recent years my love had been public, calculated, convenient. My knees felt weak. My faith, it had been part-time. Jesus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The truth in his eyes was sharper than any blade. "These are the questions that matter," he said. "And on that day your lips cannot answer for you. Only your life can." It happened so suddenly I barely had time to process it. The scene of eternity, the questions, the faces in the line, they vanished. In their place came a violent pull, like being yanked backward through a narrow doorway. My chest seized. My eyes snapped open to blinding fluorescent lights. Beeping monitors screamed in my ears. Voices shouted over one another. The cold press of oxygen against my face made me gasp, though my lungs felt foreign. 11 minutes, a nurse said, her voice trembling. "You were gone for 11 minutes. A doctor leaned over me, shaking his head in disbelief. "I can't explain this," he murmured. "We had no pulse." But I knew. This wasn't survival. This wasn't luck. This was mercy. And mercy demands a response. When I left the hospital, I didn't go back to my old routines. There was no "I survived" party. No triumphant post for likes and comments. I went home, locked the door, and fell to my knees. Not to ask for more life, but to surrender the one I had left. The first thing I did was delete the accounts I had been using to project an image of faith without living it. I didn't want to curate holiness anymore. I wanted to live it. I picked up the phone and called the people I had avoided, the ones I swore I had forgiven but secretly resented. I asked for their forgiveness, not to clear my conscience, but because I could no longer bear the weight of chains Jesus had told me to drop. I went through my habits, one by one, cutting away anything that kept me at the edges of His will instead of the center of it. I stopped serving for applause. I started serving where no one could see, cleaning floors, delivering groceries to widows, praying for strangers at night. I didn't want recognition. I wanted obedience. The goal was simple now. Walk closely with Him. Every day, even if no one else noticed. If Jesus asked you today, "Do you know me?" Could you answer honestly? Not "Do you attend church?" Not "Do you believe in God?" But "Do you know me?" Because on that day, titles won't matter. Ministries won't matter. The applause of people won't matter. Only surrender will. I'm not telling you this because I had a near-death experience. I'm telling you because I stood in front of the one who will judge every soul, and I saw people who thought they were safe be turned away. Some of them were pastors. Some were worship leaders. Some were church volunteers. And every single one of them had the same shock in their eyes when He said, "I never knew you." Don't wait. Don't hope that someday you'll get serious about God. That someday may never come. Had no warning. I had no time to prepare. If there is even one part of your life you've kept from Him, surrender it now. If you no longer weep over what breaks His heart, ask Him to make your heart alive again. If your love for Him has become public but not private, repent before the one who still offers mercy. Right now, wherever you are, say it to Him. "Lord, I don't want to pretend anymore. I truly surrender." Because on that day, there will be no rehearsals, no second chances. Only truth. And the truth is, eternity is already waiting.